And you're starting, Mariela.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on innovations in food waste management, addressing food donations and challenges. My name is Mariela McIlwraith, and I'm the Director of Industry Advancement with the Advanced Industry Council. And I'm now going to pass it on to Gwendal Castellan, who is our moderator for today.
Good morning, Mariela from Vancouver. Thank you for having me today. It's my pleasure to be able to moderate this webinar on innovation waste management, addressing food donation challenges. With us, we have Yalmaz Siddiqui, the Vice President of Corporate Sustainability at MGM Resorts International, and Larry Scott, who's the Chief Operating Officer of 3 Square. And I'll just briefly give you a quick bio for both of them. Yalmaz Siddiqui is the Vice President of Corporate Sustainability at MGM Resorts International. He joined MGM in 2016 and is responsible for the company's overall environmental management program, including policy goals, reporting, and alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Before that, he was Senior Director of Sustainability at the Office Depot, and he's the founding chair of the Sustainable Purchasing Leadership Council.
Entered the meeting as a panelist. Attendees
Larry Scott. Oh.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I think that got muted. Thank you. Larry Scott is the Chief Operating Officer of 3 Square, a role he assumed in April 2017 after serving as Chief Financial Officer, managing the company's multi-million-dollar budget. Larry Scott is directly responsible for expanding 3 Square's mission of providing wholesome food to hungry people throughout southern Nevada, increasing the organization's food procurement and warehousing, as well as assuring the quality of food distributed to agency partners. So with that, I will pass it on to Yalmaz to start with the presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And
oh, we got the poll.
I really appreciate. Sorry, Gwendal, sorry, my audio is cutting out. Working. Can you turn me on audio?
We're able to hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're able to hear you now.
I can't hear you, so I'm just going to start. And so welcome, everyone. And sorry about the slight technical difficulties. Really glad to be sharing this program with you. We know through research and speaking to many convention clients that food waste management and food donations are a really hot topic and a real priority for many in the meetings industry. So we're very glad to be able to share a program that actually has been running for 3 years, and today is actually our 3-year anniversary of this program. We started it with Cisco during Cisco GSX in 2016, and today in August 2019 is our 3-year anniversary. So it's great to be sharing. Mariela, thanks for this opportunity. And again, welcome to everyone. So I'm going to try and cover 6 topics, and I think Gwendal and Larry will add additional color as I go. And the 6 topics are reflecting on what the key challenges are related to food donations in the events industry. I'll share what we've done at MGM Resorts. I'll express how we did this, and really requiring 3 Square's partnership as a central element to the success of this program. And wrapping up, what are the critical success factors of making a program such as this work? And then we'll close with lessons for planners, venues, the food donations apps that are starting to pop up, and then to charities. So I think let's start with a quick poll. And I think, Derek, you're going to run the poll, correct? Go ahead.
So we'll
So I
actually
think
have
we
two
give
back-to-back polls, and
1 minute, and then we'll see if we get a response, some responses from everyone. So please respond, and then we'll close in probably 30 seconds now. All right, Derek, if you've got reasonable responses, let's go ahead and see what the poll responses are. All right, so yes, 12% have implemented, and that's interesting that 14%, 76 people have tried but weren't able to do a program such as this, and majority not yet. So welcome to this webinar. We'll help you hopefully explain how to go from not yet to yet. Maybe we'll go right to the second poll, and Derek, if you're ready to switch to the second poll question, it really hopefully will help us explain what the main challenges have been and the reason for that not yet. Unfortunately, I can't hear you, Gwendal, if you're saying something. But why don't we close this poll and see what the main challenges are for the audience? Okay, so number 1 is knowledge. Number 2 is liability. Okay, we're definitely going to address that. Logistics and food safety, third, but those are sort of combined. And then we'd be interested in hearing the other. So I'm gonna, so thank you for those poll responses. And I think you'll find that we've prepared content that will help all of you. And again, I apologize, Gwendal and Larry, I can't hear you, but I'm just gonna carry on.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, so let's start with moving the page. Let's see if I can do that. All right, so number 1, what are the key challenges to donating food after banquets? And I'm going to list the 4. So it was in the poll. Some consider it legally risky. There are challenges associated with laws. Number 2, even if you can resolve the legal issues, you may be worried that it might not be safe. And so, yes, you might have removed liability from yourselves as a donor, but you still don't want to donate food if it's not safe for people. That might be a challenge. Number 3, it's complicated. People perceive that, and in fact it is. So that's a barrier. And then lastly, it may be expensive. So one thinks that you've got all this high quality food and you can just donate it to charity, but it may be expensive to figure out how to manage the logistics relative to just throwing it away. So those are the 4 primary challenges, and I think audience participants expressed similar. So let's now switch to sharing what we've done at MGM Resorts. I'm going to start with how we resolved those 4 main challenges. And then we'll get into how we did it. And so as I said, 8/26/2016, during Cisco GSX, a major convention with over 10,000 people, we did our first donation from one property, Aria. And this is the actual food, potatoes mainly from breakfast, that went to Catholic charities. So since then, since August 2016 to July 2019, we have now safely donated over 840,000 pounds of food. And that's mainly from these 5 MGM Resorts locations, Aria, Bellagio, MGM Grand Mirage, and Mandalay Bay. And that is food of 3 types: perishable prepared, unserved event food, perishable unprepared food. So this could be chicken or vegetables that they're not cooked, that go to be donated from our kitchens, and then finally non-perishable food such as dry goods and minibar juices and snacks, etc. And USDA has an average estimate of an average meal is 1.2 pounds. So that 840,000 pounds is over 700,000 meals. This is an image of 700 meals. So multiply that 700 meals by 1,000, and you get a sense of the scale and the number of people who are getting high quality food that would otherwise have gone to landfill or farm. So it's pretty powerful. And there's also a calculator. There are calculators available online that convert food diverted from landfill to carbon emissions avoided. And that same volume of food results in an estimated 4.5 million pounds or over 2,000 tons of avoided carbon emissions. So double win from an environmental food waste reduction standpoint and a carbon reduction standpoint. Now let's focus, given the majority of the audience is in the events industry, we're gonna focus most of our webinar on unserved event food. And so how do we do it with the partnership with 3 Square? Well, first, we overcame this first challenge of legal risk. And the way we did that is first, we read and understood the basics of the Bill Emerson Good Samaritan Act. And you can read it here that essentially it's to encourage the donation of food and grocery products to nonprofit organizations, and essentially limits the liability of the donor. Maybe, Larry, if you're able to provide a little bit of insight. I think Larry maybe went to get some water or something. So essentially, it limits the liability for the donor, and it's worth reading and understanding. If you're the food waste champion or the food donations champion at your organization, whether you're a planner or a venue, understanding this text is helpful. You're not likely to be a lawyer, but just knowing some basics about how this protects you as the donor or a gleaner, as the language, can be helpful. And Larry, thanks for returning. We just had a quick question. Can you add a little bit of color on the Bill Emerson food donation law in terms of, as a recipient, how do you help limit the liability of the donor pursuant to this act?
Well, we certainly have and accept certain responsibilities, tremendous responsibilities of food safety standards. So along with our cooperation and the assistance that we receive from MGM, we're able to comply really to the absolute letter and spirit of the law. So we just have the direction, the guidelines from it, and we're very faithful to oblige by what is expected of us. So it's a good standard. If we combine federal compliance and corporate responsibility of a partner like MGM, combination of the two provides us a good warmth of security that we feel about the liability.
And Yalmaz, this is a good time for me to jump in and just let people know, because we do have an international audience, that there are food donor encouragement acts in the provinces in Canada. And then in Europe, there are different versions of this. And one of the things we're committing to is to collect all the different pieces from parts of the world that we can find that can give some direction for our audience on what would be equivalents outside of the US.
Great. So for some reason, my speaker's not working, everyone. So I can just see when Gwendal and Larry stop talking, and then I'm going to start talking. So that's how we're going to run this. So first, as a champion, understand the act, at least at the basic level. Then we work with 3 Squared to clarify in a document that we would receive as the donor, how our liability is being released. So this is the actual language on the back of a liability release that 3 Square provides us every time we donate as a venue from every single donation. So the chefs will sign a document to declare what the donation was. And on the back of that slip, this physical slip, is this language that our legal team reviewed and felt comfortable with, that the liability was indeed being released through this language. And we also recognize that there's the US federal law, and similarly in countries that you might be in, there might be a national law governing food donations, but also there are opinions or views that are important from your local regulator. So in Nevada, the Southern Nevada Health District regulates food safety in general. Now, interestingly, they don't actually regulate food donations. However, they have a point of view around food safety. So we learned the views of the local health district, and armed with those 3 things, armed with knowledge of the Bill Emerson Act, knowledge of the local health district's opinions, and clarity on how the recipient entity, 3 Square, was going to release liability from us, we then engaged legal counsel. We didn't engage them first without that prior knowledge. And I think that's really important as a champion for you to come armed with knowledge that helps alleviate legal's maybe concern about this program. And so our senior counsel at ARIA, where we did our first donation, we worked with him to explain this program, explain the desire from a number of convention clients. And so we were armed with that as well, the interest of the convention client as a priority program area, and the local knowledge from the regulator and the Bill Emerson Act. And combined, all 3 things helped us overcome the legitimate concerns that legal might have. One important legal disclaimer I want to add to this webinar is that if you're thinking of doing this in your jurisdiction, it would be it is important that you seek legal counsel yourself and not rely, legal counsel and safety counsel from your local regulator or your local food bank, and not rely exclusively on the learnings from this webinar. This is an area of legal risk, and so you need to be diligent in terms of your local insight. And I'm just, as you can tell, I'm channeling my legal team's interest in my remark just now. So then we also memorialized all of this in a formal legal document that we agreed with 3 Square. Both legal teams agreed this is the release of liability indemnification. So all complicated but important steps as the donor to alleviate the company's concerns about legal liability. Any other thing to add, Gwendal, Larry, or Mariela, to the legal question? Because it was one of the most important concerns of the audience.
There was just one question that came through as far as applicability to every state. The question was, is the Bill Emerson Act in every state?
Yes, it's a federal law in the U.S. It was signed in 1996, and it was a bipartisan bill. So it has been established for a number of years now, and we really need to raise awareness of the protections that are provided through that.
And there was just one other question. I think it's a good one for Larry to jump in on, is about finding receptive organizations in their city. So any advice on how to seek out receptive organizations like 3 Square?
When you say receptive organizations, who are donors, or what are you referencing to?
Who not donors, but who would be willing to accept donated food?
In receipt of the food, I got it. Okay. Well, in Southern Nevada, which is the universe that I deal in with, we are the only food bank. Certainly, the donors could go directly to the agencies to donate, but we found that that's a much higher level of risk. We are so much more equipped to be able to handle the food safety standards that it's a risky proposition to take prepared food and going directly to the agencies. They're just generally not equipped. So I would almost always recommend that you formalize it through a food bank who has the standards built into their practices.
Thank you. Yalmaz.
Great. So I'm going to carry on because I think you've finished. Okay. All right. So number 2, we overcame challenge number 2. It may not be safe. And so the first thing we did is very early on in our program, we engaged the food and beverage safety team. And this was our key partner, Tammy Williams, Director of Food and Beverage Safety. She's now left, unfortunately, but the premise is that we found the function that focuses on food safety and enrolled them in developing our standard operating procedures. So from the get-go, that potential either champion or entity or function that would be concerned about this program was enrolled in it and was co-creating it with us. So it's really important as a venue to ensure you've got your food safety people involved very early. We also recognize that chefs are central to this entire program. They need to be passionate about it. They need to be interested in it. And they also need to contribute to the safety protocols because they know them in terms of food prep. And we need them to be enrolled and engaged in terms of safe donation as well. We memorialized these in a very formal risk management food donations program standard operating procedure. And it's just like every other formal policy that the company has. It's in the same template. It's using the same headings, and it's clear where it comes from, risk administration. And so this is an important document to memorialize your program so it's not just running ad hoc without controls. And so there were many drafts of this because we iterated and learned with 3 Square, with chefs, with food safety, but we finally honed in on the essential elements and simplified it. It was actually 20 pages originally, too much for people to absorb. And we now have a simple 3-page standard operating procedure that clarifies exactly what you need to focus on as a donor. We also shared these processes. Again, even though the Southern Nevada Health District doesn't regulate food donations, we shared our standard operating procedures and we walked them through donations so that they were comfortable that we were following food safety protocols, even though they didn't sign off on this because they don't regulate it. And then finally, and maybe this is one of the most important things, we recognized that a lot of this was being developed with a small set of people, and we wanted to step outside, and we hired Dr. Brian Nummer, who's a subject matter expert in food microbiology. So he knows what happens when food gets out of temperature and what pathogens start forming and when they do and what temperatures you need to maintain, etc. So he validated our entire process. He reviewed 3 Square's processes, the recipient agency's processes, and helped memorialize the standard operating procedure at the highest standards of food safety to mitigate concerns of all of our teams and ourselves, candidly. We want to make sure this food is safe. And here's some technical insight that is, comes from the US Food Code. It might be different for you in Europe or Canada, but here are the essentials here are essential principles. That food is safe above 135 degrees Fahrenheit or above 57.2 degrees Celsius. Food is also safe under 41 degrees Fahrenheit, and certainly when it's freezing at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. That's the safe zone. There is, however, a danger zone that incorporates both time and temperature. And it's depicted in this chart. That in this danger zone, the yellow part in the middle, really you have 6 hours to get from the hot safe zone to the cold safe zone. But there are 2 first hours. As soon as you're out of this hot safe zone, you need to get to 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21.1 degrees Celsius within 2 hours. That's the time you have. It's a fast time in which you need to get the hot food to the first part of the safety zone. And then the second is you've got 4 more hours to get from 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 degrees Celsius to 41 degrees Fahrenheit or 5 degrees Celsius. And so this is from Brian Nummer, it's from the health district, it's from 3 Square, it's from our food safety team, all validated these temperatures. And what we learned through this important insight on time and temperature is that as part of food donations, it is really quite critical to have access to equipment, a blast chiller. And this is equipment that 3 Square had before this program began. And really, essentially, a blast chiller is a freezer that has extra fans to accelerate the cooling process. And really, through the airflow, you speed up how fast hot food can get cold. Now, generally, blast chillers are used by chefs during the prep cycle, meaning they might be cooking and then blast chilling food to keep it to fire when they need to. So we wanted to use these at MGM on our properties as part of our process, but the challenge is that there's very limited access to these because they're constantly being used in these high volume kitchens for prep. So there was little capacity on site for a use of these for donations. Consequently, we really rely on, and this might be the same at a venue across the country, venues across the country or world. Your blast chillers, if you have them, might be in high demand. And so we really relied on 3 Square to have and use this blast chiller for our safety protocols. And Larry, do you want to add any color or detail to this, or says carry on?
I think you can carry on.
Okay. So what the blast chiller really does is help you get through the critical first part of the danger zone. So this yellow is the danger zone. We have just 2 hours to cool hot food, and it's really 65 degrees temperature gradient within 2 hours. That's over 0.5 degree Fahrenheit or 0.3 of a degree Celsius cooling per minute. So in order to optimize safety protocols, this is the recommendation from the food safety experts that we've worked with. Again, you should rely on food safety experts in your own jurisdiction and validate these numbers, but this is what we have understood. And this is how we developed our program to maximize focus on food safety. And then the other safety principle we adopted was, we really do want to capture all this food. Right? We really love capturing food and donating it to people in need. However, if in doubt, we throw it out. We throw it out to the farm program or composting. We have a pretty robust program to send this food to farm. But actually, that picture is my favorite fish. That is cobia lemon fish. It's the most delicious fish I've ever had, and that didn't tempt. It was captured when it was temped for recovery. It was under 135 degrees, maybe even 133 degrees. And so we chose, according to this clear safety principle, to throw it out and send it to the pig farm instead of capturing it for food because we didn't meet our safety protocols. So number 3, it's too complicated. So yes, all of you, planners, venues, food banks, apps, it is true. Compared to just sending this food to landfill or farms where there's really one step, like pour it out, you're done, send it to landfill, send it to farms, donating food to people in need is simply more complicated. It is. That is a fact. And it's really because of safety. And however, this is my opinion, and I think probably all of your opinions because you're on this webinar. We think it's worth it. It's worth it if we can get this high quality food to food insecure people in our communities, your community, our community. This is often, some really, really high quality, sometimes chef prepared, sometimes award-winning chefs. This is extremely high quality food, and it's really heartwarming and valuable to capture it, avoid the food waste, go up the hierarchy, and capture it to feed people in need. So it's worth going through the complicated process if you can develop protocols for safety. And we were going to have a video to show you the complicated process. I'm going to walk you through all the steps, but Mariela is going to share the video afterwards so you have a sense of the steps later on. Number 4, it's expensive. So I'll start this by saying, you know, this is high quality food, and one thinks as a donor that you should just be able to donate it. And yes, in some jurisdictions it might be possible, but this is expensive food to collect. And I'm gonna start and then let Larry add a little bit of color. That expense includes funds for staffing. This is 3 Square staff, but it could be MGM staff that now, compared to just pouring food into a tote to send away, now need to do additional work in terms of temp, additional work in terms of transferring food from reusables to transferable equipment. The transfer process sometimes can take an hour at a major event, or half an hour, because you're temping everything, you're transferring it. So funds for equipment in terms of using a blast chiller, the electricity, funds for transportation, funds for, in our model that you'll learn about later on this webinar, we freeze this food in bulk. So funds for maintaining the freezer, funds for managing the IT system that allows you to coordinate the transfer. So all those funds, when 3 Square did some calculations, this type of event rescue is much more expensive per pound than grocery food rescue. And we've chosen to do it again for all the reasons expressed, but it's expensive. And Larry, maybe can you add a bit of color about contrasting different cost models, and again, why you still think it's worth it as a food bank to still capture this food, notwithstanding the higher expense?
Absolutely, yeah. You know, there's, Yalmaz has addressed a variety of different barriers that are real associated with this. It is difficult for sure. It's not just easy to rescue prepared food, but one of the difficulties that I think is oftentimes evaluated more heavily than others is just simply the funding and the expense costs associated with it. Why would you spend nearly $1 a pound to rescue food when you could utilize your energies at less than 10 cents a pound to rescue grocery food? And there's a very, very important answer to that question. One is that is really critical with this is one of the great voids that exists in feeding the food insecure people is the lack of meat proteins. As a food bank, we are scrambling constantly to be able to find meat proteins that are an essential part of a good diet for a lot of people. And so we simply do not have enough of those types of proteins to be able to say that we have a good nutritional offering. When we get this, rescue this food, this absolutely takes care of a great deal of those needs. And I think it's also important just to look at this realistically when you look at the cost associated with this. This is not a discussion that you oftentimes have with a donor because this is an internal issue that they have to deal with. But the reality is that we're all fully aware of is that there's an offset to this nearly $1 of expense per pound that is associated with it. First of all, if you look at the alternative, in Southern Nevada, for instance, we have 5,000 pigs in this community that are oftentimes being fed food from the hospitality industry. They're not food insecure pigs. These are pigs that are fed real well, but it is a completely inexpensive method of disposal of the food. It also doesn't require any real food safety standards.
All right.
But in order.
So sorry. Oh, Larry, carry on. Oh.
Okay. Well, I'm just let me just finish with.
All right. Sorry, I still can't hear you, but I'm going to carry on. Let me turn this off. Sorry. Okay. So and so really to help 3 Square create the infrastructure, sorry, Gwendal, do you have something to say? No? Okay. So to help create the infrastructure for prepared food rescue in Las Vegas, we provided a major grant to 3 Square to help offset, at least a number of years of the cost that they would be bearing if we were just trying to provide this food to them, for them to collect. So this is, we're not saying with this slide that every jurisdiction needs to provide this level of funding to enable this type of program, but the message I want to share is that it does cost more money to do this type of food rescue than other types of food rescue. So as a donor, it feels weird to not only give high quality food, but also give money. But your company probably has philanthropic dollars that are allocated to things, right? So perhaps allocate some of those philanthropic dollars to enabling this program in the jurisdiction and enabling your food banks and your shelters and other participants to offset the costs that they would be bearing to do this important program. All right, so now let's go. I'm going to quickly run through our detailed process, and so you'll get a sense of how this operates. It happens practically every day. There's donations happening now at MGM Resorts Properties, one of those 5 mentioned, practically every day. The first thing we did, when we roll this out at a different property, we provide very detailed training on the SOPs to the important functions. And they could be the chefs, the culinary teams, stewarding staff, the environmental safety people, food safety. It's a very robust training, at least a couple of hours, and cascades down to many, many people. So that's the first thing. SOPs need to be known by many people. Second, we have a forecast. This shows the 60-day forecast at ARIA for the events that are coming up. And every property in the 5 that are in this program send 3 Square's food recovery team the 60-day forecast on a weekly basis. Sorry, on a bi-weekly basis, they get an updated version of 6-day forecast. And then based on the opportunities, 3 Square then, this is for overall planning. And then on a weekly basis, 3 Square makes their pickup plan. So they're deciding which properties have the events where recovery, the highest volume recovery is most likely. And then they coordinate with those teams because, times change of meal breakdowns, et cetera. And so there's a lot of coordination because our model really is 3 Square is our partner to do the transfer and collection. Again, we don't have a very active on-site freezing model. We do sometimes, but it's really because we don't have blast chillers available at capacity regularly that we rely on this model. There's a lot more planning and coordination. If you have blast chillers on site in your venue where your staff can do the blast chilling and freezing on site, then it does alleviate this coordination, but it's going to be your labor and your staff and your use of blast chiller on site. That needs to be negotiated. As a chef, if you're watching and can do that, then that's great. It simplifies the process, but this is our current process given our reality in terms of equipment. Okay, so when a chosen meal, we've chosen the meal now, that's breaking down at a chosen banquet. 3 Square truck will arrive. The chef will decide out of all the hot boxes that have some unserved food remaining, which ones he believes or she believes are appropriate for donation. Then he or she writes donate. That's very important actually, because as soon as he or she's written donate, that means this food is now outside the regulatory jurisdiction of the Southern Nevada Health District. It's now labeled for donation. So now it's under our protocol, not our control. And it's important to note, this is not food that's already made it out into the banquet hall because that's outside control, outside temperature control, and is near the guest. We're not recovering that. That is going to our farm process. It's not being sent for donations. Really important distinction. Then either the chef and or 3 Square will take the temperature of either multiple pans or, generally multiple pans in a single hot box. If the multiple pans are above 135, or if the cold food has been kept under refrigeration, then it's deemed safe for donation. Here's an example from yesterday. This is pork tenderloin with vegetables. 128 degrees Fahrenheit was the temp. Some of the pans were 135, we donated it. Some were 140, we donated it. Some were 128, we didn't donate it. Some were 125, we didn't donate it. Similarly, cold food, if it's kept under refrigeration and if it gets above 41 or if it's out in the public area, even if it's covered, we don't donate it unless it's food that doesn't need to be time and temperature controlled. And in different jurisdictions, there'll be different food types that don't need to be time and temperature controlled, and therefore they could be safe for donation. They're almost like non-perishables. But for us, what's really important is this distinction of if at the point of transfer, it is below 135 degrees or above 41 degrees, we don't send it for donation. So we might send it internally for reuse in our employee dining, or if it's in the safe zone, we send it for donations. But if not, again, we send it to food scraps for farms. Now, for food that meets these temperature controls, 3 Square staff will then take the food out of MGM's, you can see this, a solid reusable tray, an asset that we keep in our inventory, and we need to rotate it very quickly, and it goes into these aluminum trays. And actually, here's a lesson. That was an old photo where we had these large aluminum trays, and then we started using small aluminum trays, and the smaller aluminum trays were more desired by the ultimate food bank recipients because they're smaller portions that maybe the whole thing can be given to a family, or they can order it in a more discrete quantity. And that was it's a good tip for you in terms of the suppliers you use. Then food is transported to 3 Square. It takes about 30 minutes from the strip to 3 Square's food bank. There, it's rapidly cooled in the blast chiller by the 3 Square chef. And that blast chiller helps get it through that critical first part of the danger zone, right? So let's say it was captured at 12:45 or transferred. Then you might be capturing more and more food. It might take an hour. That might be an hour before you leave. Then you get to 3 Square. It might be an hour and 20 minutes. You've just got 20 minutes left or 30 minutes left to get the food down in the blast chiller. So there's real importance in this blast chiller in terms of getting it through the danger zone. Then the food is labeled and placed in this bulk freezer that, again, we're very blessed that 3 Square is a very sophisticated food bank. They have a large storage freezer that can hold up to 250,000 pounds. So this food is frozen in inventory. In fact, this is the actual list of food from MGM that's been captured and being stored in the inventory. So you can see, chicken breast with quinoa, 1 tray, well, this is 5 pounds average, or chicken enchilada, 1 tray of 9 pounds average. Right now, today, there are over 670 pounds of MGM food sitting in a true food bank, frozen. That's nearly 3,000 meals ready to be ordered by a recipient agency in a much more controlled way than them suddenly receiving unknown quantities of food of unknown types. So the ultimate food shelters really like this process because it's much more controlled. It results in much less waste on their side because they might not be able to use unknown quantities of food that suddenly arrive. And so they really value this control method. And then, charities like Catholic Charities or MLK Junior Senior Center, and actually 100 other ultimate food banks order this food from 3 Square. Maybe it would be helpful for the audience, Larry, if you would explain the distinction between your role as a food bank and the ultimate recipient agency. Can you help everyone make that distinction?
Certainly. We source and distribute. They actually feed the clients. We do not do any direct client, well, very, very little direct client food service or food delivery. Our purpose is to be able to secure it and to make things easier for them to be able to deal with their clients.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to speed up because I want to leave at least 10 minutes for questions. So food is then thawed by the recipient agency, like Catholic Charities, and then it's reheated. And then ultimately high quality food, including much needed protein, because this is, there's a lot of protein that might be being donated, is then served to the food insecure. Okay, what allowed this program to be successful? How can we have scaled to nearly over 840,000 pounds in a few years from just 5 resorts? Number one, passionate project managers. So Brittany Price, the Director of Sustainable Operations in MGM's team, and Reese Johnson, who's Director of Operations at 3 Square, both were central to making this happen. Also, actually haven't mentioned passionate clients as well, passionate planners who encourage us as a venue to figure this out. And also, in Larry's team at 3 Square, Amanda Jerzak, Chef L, and many others are really central, passionate team workers to help make this happen. Really committed chefs. Chefs, if you're watching, you're central to this. You need to enroll them if you're a champion. Great partner, 3 Square. Lucky enough in Nevada to have a very sophisticated food bank that can serve as a logistics hub to help create this really effective, optimized process. Cross-functional team. So this is a cross-functional team, including catering, sustainability, 3 Square, chefs, reporting people, convention services people, cross-functional teams working together to ensure this works seamlessly. Food and beverage safety experts, as Tammy Williams and Brian Number, collaborating to make sure our safety protocols are top-notch. And finally, a clear standard operating procedure and really rigorous processes, obsessively focused on this important task of keeping the food safe. Okay, so what's next? Very quickly. Since blast chillers are so important, with 3 Square's collaboration, where we've designed and are currently testing, in fact, yesterday was our first multi-property test of this new equipment. So part of our grant helped fund the invention of a mobile blast chiller. We understand, people around the world might help us realize it might not be the first in the world, but we understand it's the first in the world. Blast chiller on a truck, basically a freezer with lots of extra fans to get the airflow going and cool the food down. So we are inventing and testing this mobile blast chiller. That's me very happy because it seems to be working. And it's the beta version of this mobile blast chiller that aims to maximize hot food collection, ideally with many stops along the way, opening and closing the doors. That's what we're testing. You put food in from one venue, you start the chilling process. You move to another venue, open the doors, put more food in. We don't know if it's going to work, but we are trying, and we think this could be a major contribution to this cause for venues and cities where there aren't food banks with blast chillers. We're hoping to donate 1.4 million meals by 2020. That's what's next for MGM. And then also, this webinar is it's actually the second sort of public release of this detailed process. But we have committed to, and we are going to publish a detailed blueprint for food donations from hotels and venues. And maybe, for example, some of the questions that show up during this webinar will be answered in that blueprint as we design it and write it. Okay, let's close last 10 minutes with lessons. Actually, I'll try and do it in 2 minutes. For planners, you may want this. You may have wanted it for a long time. But also recognize that the venue partner might have wanted to do this and may still want to do that. You might have champions in there, but there are significant challenges to doing this, not just legal challenges, safety challenges, operational challenges, financial challenges, process challenges, internal engagement challenges. There's lots. But the more of you that start asking your venues to explore the process and gently work and nudge and help, support, but don't expect a solution overnight, because you might bump up against barriers if you push too hard. So it's really a dance of working with your venue partners to try and make this happen over the long haul. For venues, start by designating a champion or creating a cross-functional team to work on this. You're the champion trying to make this happen. So you're the person, actually it is a person, it starts with a person, needs to explore the local regulations with the local health district, engage your legal teams only when you're knowledgeable. So you get through those barriers. Be open to providing not only the food, but also figuring out how to provide funding. We had to go up to our board, MGM board, to get a grant of this size, but we worked our way up and we got that support. And yes, some of the funding might be offset through tax deductions, but we didn't know that. We explored the funding way before we explored tax deductions. And so that's going to be your reality. You're going to have to fund this just because it's a good program. And then if you have blast chillers, you can use them on your site, please do, or help the charity. Maybe part of your funding can help fund a blast chiller at your local food bank. For the food donations logistics apps that are coming up, we love the fact that there is a brewing interest in food donations and logistics being provided by apps. We would recommend that in your jurisdictions where you operate, spend a bit more time with the local health authorities and ensure that you optimize your food safety protocols, right? We want apps to succeed, but we also want the program overall of food donations to succeed and not result in any illness anywhere. So we would strongly recommend that you encourage donors to throw out food if it's not temped above 135, below 41, and to figure out ways to take temperatures and or blast or chill food before it's collected by your drivers. That's our recommendation for apps. And then for charities, raise funds to invest in a blast chiller, calculate your cost to collect prepared food versus other food, because that's what's going to be persuasive to your funders, that if they want to do this, there needs to be a financial contribution. Request that funding, and then finally learn from 3 Square, because I think we've developed, or they've helped develop, a really best practice program. Larry, you had a very great way to express these closing thoughts. So say them, and and let me know when you want me to move the slide.
Sure, yeah. I'll just summarize. Yalmaz has given you a wonderful presentation. I would be remiss if I didn't say we have the most unique, wonderful community partner that anybody could ever have in MGM. So that's first and foremost. There's barriers here. There's economics. There's a lot of liability concerns that can be overcome. And there's a variety of different challenges from a food safety standpoint and from difficult challenges. But this is doable. Most importantly, though, the most critical thing is you have to have a will to be able to do this. You have to truly want to help your community. And I think if you have that desire to help the community, you'll be able to overcome any of the barriers that exist, I guarantee you.
Done? Should I move all the way to the end? Okay, I'm going to go to Mariela. Mariela, while you do the last slides, I'm going to go onto the phone so I can hear you all. Okay? Go ahead.
All right.
Okay. So I
go
did
for it, Mariela.
Thank you. I do want to put in a bit of a plug for our State of Sustainability survey that is open right now. It is really important that we have people complete this survey. You know, one of the driving factors for MGM was hearing from clients that food donations was an important consideration for them. And what we want to do is be able to collect more than just anecdotes. We want to have real, concrete data. So I will fully admit it's a longer than usual survey. It takes about 10 minutes to complete. But this is what's going to be what's presented in our next webinar. We know that these webinars are incredibly popular. We've seen extraordinary turnout today for our webinar, record breaking. And we want to continue to be able to deliver this type of quality education. The State of Sustainability Survey will help us to figure out what are the issues that matter the most to you so that we can develop that content. So please do take the time. The link is on there, and we'll also send it out to you after this webinar. But if you want to just load up that website to do this immediately following the webinar, we would really appreciate it.
I can hear you, Mariela. Next slide.
Yes, let's go to the next slide.
All right, let's see why. There you go. Okay, go ahead.
And so if you'd like to obtain CEs for this, they will be uploaded within a week, as long as your email address matches the one on registration needs to match the one on your EIC portal account. But you will also receive a confirmation of attendance immediately following this with that survey link, remember. So please click on that link and complete the survey. So I think we have a couple of questions. Yes,
Thank you, Mariela. We've got 2 minutes to run through. We got 38 questions. No, we'll see if we.
If the webinar allows, we can carry on a little bit further, Mariela. If people want to stay and we can stay, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with carrying on if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got. We'll get started here, and the first question that I have is one is around. Compelling venues to have a food donation program. Is that possible? And I think you've addressed that to some degree. And then another question that came up was how to audit that donations actually took place or be able to report back to your clients if you're a planner and working with a venue to give them some information. One question came up as they felt that they were told, yes, our food's being donated, but they wanted to get some kind of assurance of that.
Well, compelling the venue, I think maybe a word change would be helpful. I think encouraging the venue and adding your voice to other meeting planners who may be using the same venue, maybe doing a little bit of research yourself as a planner who's interested in this, and finding the local food banks.
Oh, I think we've lost Yalmaz's audio there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, now I can't hear you. Okay, so I'll dial back into the phone to hear the next question. But so compelling venues, I think, knowing that they have barriers, and knowing maybe you've hopefully learned a few things from this webinar that can help you. But it's important to recognize that there are significant legal safety process barriers, and they can't just turn on a dime and do it. But repeating the encouragement and helping them learn, sharing this link, that is all gonna help. And the more, if you're a meeting planner and meeting with the senior salesperson and the senior convention services person and are articulating these requests, that will help. So going senior and joining others. How to audit? Well, I think it's a matter of asking for maybe photographs of the donations. It could be asking to be connected to the food bank that's collecting this food, so that you can just learn about the process. And those are two examples. Larry, maybe other suggestions around auditing, or should we go to the next question? I've got to dial in. If I'm going to answer the next question as well, I need to dial in.
Larry, do you want to add something while Yalmaz is dialing in?
Yeah, I mean, one of the values that we hold dear at our food bank, and I'm sure at others, is transparency. So if anybody needs to audit the process, we are always open to being able to
Okay, it appears we've lost Larry's audio.
I'm on audio on my I'm on audio on my phone now.
I did want to clarify one point from earlier. With the donations, when you're following the protocols for food that is going to be donated, you also follow protocols for food that's going to be used internally for staff cafeterias as well. Correct?
Yes. Yes. If it's out of time and temperature, we don't use it internally. We don't reuse it internally.
All right, so I think we're getting close to time, but I'm gonna. There's one question that's been at the very, very top that's really popular in our questions here, which was in accordance. So one of our listeners has said a hotel had told them that they couldn't donate in accordance with the Bill Emerson because of city ordinances, and so they did their due diligence and found that when they spoke to the city in which they were in, that this was in fact not the case, and that the city was absolutely supporting the Bill Emerson Act, and so they were able to work through the conflicting information, and sort of finishes with a call to event professionals. It's up to us to continue to push this and use those laws to help venues see that it is possible. Yalmaz or Larry, can you speak to that ongoing dialogue that you have with planners for your venues? And it appears.
I think it's just really important that we dispel myths that are out there about liability, about legislation. I think that people really do. There's just a lot of misinformation out there. So webinars like this and asking those right questions, and I absolutely commend the planner for doing their due diligence and finding out the information to back it up. We really need to educate all of our partners in order to make this feasible.
All right. And I think we're still having some technical difficulties, Mariela. Maybe this is a time for me to thank Yalmaz and Larry for giving us this full hour of their time to share their story of collaboration and innovation. We're really excited to continue to follow how this new mobile blast truck can potentially increase your capacity to donate more food safely in your area, and that this is something that we can all potentially bring back to our different parts of the world and see if it is a solution that can work, that can help for us. And even regardless of that, I think there was a lot of information there that can help us move along and shift the dial in different jurisdictions around the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwendal. Thank you, Mariela, and thanks everyone from around the world. I think there's over 1,000 people who attended today, Mariela, right? That's fantastic, and we're really glad to share, and happy to even take questions that you might have and try and incorporate them into our future blueprint that we release to the world. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.